Hi, Angie.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, right? So I'll just explain a little bit about what we're doing here. I'm going to, uh, we're chatting. I'm going to ask you some questions about, um, just to talk a bit more around subjects or to clarify some of the material that Miles recorded
hmm
when he came to interview you.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're talking about Woodland Manor basically, and the reason that we started to do the video was there was some question as to whether there was a forest. I don't remember that you actually used the word forest. You must have uh, around Woodland Manor. So you'd like to clear that up in terms of your memories as a child and what you experienced.
Okay. Yeah, because part of dissociative identity disorder is a difficulty with sequential anchoring of memories, frozen memories, and then I've moved 4 to 6 times. I'm not justifying because it's part of the condition of uh, MKUltra stuff. It's just the memory. There's memory gaps. There's memory uh, confusion. There's sequential confusion.
You've been keeping track of what the CIA and the Defense Department have been doing for a long time as far as using us as guinea pigs for mind control and other types of horrible things they have in mind for us and the rest of the people in the world. What are some of them?
Well, it started out basically with the CIA doing experimentations on their own men to discover if they could get rid of agents who were going to quit the department and still had classified information. So they utilized different types of drugs and pain and hypnosis and electric shock to try and get the guys to forget. Then they also did experimentations to using different chemicals to see if you can induce a person to commit a crime or induce him to do that or to do this. Of course, the CIA claimed that it didn't carry it through. The documentation we got was actually that they did that. Then we came across the overall project called MKUltra. Its earlier code name was Artichoke, and that included 149 sub-projects.
149.
Yeah. And those sub-projects range from what I just described to open-air testing in the United States, experimentation on prisoners, experimentation on soldiers, experimentation on college students.
Would these people know they were being experimented on and gave their approval?
They just knew that they went crazy for a couple of days or so forth and so on, and then years later have similar things to the guys who have had Agent Orange, because there's one chemical that was used called BZ, and it's 100 times stronger than LSD. It's a very gross drug that causes a person to totally go out of his head for at least 12 hours, sometimes up to 2 to 3 weeks, where he doesn't even know where he is or who he is.
Are there residual effects
The
to
different
BZ?
kinds of things that they did without the citizen's permission, anytime on any of these tests was.
Or even knowing about it?
Oh no,
Right.
of course not. They didn't even say they were going to do it.
So yeah, so with regard to Rudloe Manor, we've got two things. I did 5 years work recovering from abuse that I remembered from the age of 11 to 15. And I had spoken at that time to a mortally trained therapist saying that I do have some other memories, some troubling memories, but I can't anchor them. I can't, they don't make sense. What I wasn't aware of, I think, was because I can have a flash memory that's absolutely real. It's not false memory syndrome. It's not constructed memory. It's none of that baloney. But there's a blank before and a blank after. And it's only since I've educated myself about, electric shock treatments or drug treatments or whatever that we use specifically so that get you to maximum terror and then give you an injection or give you a zap or whatever technology they were using so that you could be abused with no memory. And obviously it has failed slightly because I shouldn't even remember being hunted. The hunting memory is totally and utterly authentic. It's documented in work I made 3 or 4 years ago. Whether it's RAF Rudloe Manor is the issue, I think, where there's room for, with a frozen memory, I'm just seeing I call it a forest, but I believe I was around the age of 8. A forest at 8 can be a woods. So I will just to break it down how that I placed that there. And I had said to Miles a couple of days after the interview, do you know what? It could equally have been Holton. I've got a complete blank, as does my mother, as do 2 of my siblings, about where we went from returning from Gibraltar to landing at Rudloe Manor. So we came back from Gibraltar around July 65, and then there was a kind of a haze about where were we until we got to Rudloe Manor about October. And I've asked my mother to piece it together for me, but she was subject to electric treatment, like she was taken into military hospitals for sort of 9 or 11 weeks at a time and given intensive electric shock treatment. So she kind of thinks we came back from Gibraltar, we waited around Holton. She wrote some notes for me actually, but even her notes she's got the same thing of being muddled of where were we. But she talks about Buntingsdale House. She absolutely swears Daddy had a posting at Buntingsdale House, near, that's also near RAF Holton, where they still do training. But when I look up Buntingsdale House, it was indeed an Air Force base during World War II, but officially it was not used after 1945, until again it became an army base in the 70s. But Mum had it that Daddy was working at Buntingsdale House.
What county was Buntingsdale in? What county is that? Buntingsdale base house.
Got it.
Training. Is it training camp?
I think it's Herefordshire. I can feel that kind of detail. I can find it actually. I've got it favorited because I was so amazed that Mum was absolutely adamant that Daddy had a posting, and I think it's quite possible.
Because he had a pattern of moving frequently at that time. Your mother was moving from home to home at a tremendous rate too, wasn't she? How many homes did she have when she had children, young children under 5?
Well, I can trace that back as well. They started life, I've got my piece of paper, but again, she's got muddled versions of where, and there seemed to be an awful lot of changing and sudden Daddy being seconded. So it's almost as if they'd parked Mum and the kids somewhere, and then Dad would get sent off here for 6 weeks, or there for a week, or there for a month, or suddenly they'd be posted somewhere else, or they'd be called back early off holiday. There seemed to be a lot of Dad was in catering, and there were reasons given like, oh, there might be a strike, or we need to up the standard of catering on such and such a camp, or you need to go there because there's a high-level meeting. There was always a reason, but it seems to me it wasn't.
Yes, I mean, yes, it's extraordinary. For example, the time that you tell about him going off to a ship where the South African heads of state, is it?
Yeah.
And it seems you felt, I think you said to me that he was put into the catering corps to cover frequent moves around.
That's a theory.
To make it plausible, because he was, by vocation, he was a horse whisperer, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a country man, obviously.
And this is why they wanted him around big time. And he had 4 daughters.
5.
Possibly, five daughters that were generationally and currently dissociated due to trauma.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they would have been an possible interest on many fronts, because we know they were experimenting with trauma and MKUltra, of course. Trauma, drugs, memory wiping is another thing that they actually were researching. So MKUltra was searching for for drugs to have the effect of disorientating people, wiping the memories. Absolutely. So it can make these. If the DID, you wonder sometimes if there was some sort of drug intervention, or is it just the DID that gives you fragmented memories?
I think it's a two-pronged thing. I think the first 6 years of life are the 6 years when they can have the biggest impact on the brain. The earlier they start, preferably in utero, preferably with generational history, that you'll be predisposed to being easily mind controlled. But from infancy to 5, I spent more time in military hospitals than at home, and the explanations I'm given are not, it doesn't add up. Why?
No, that's right. And you have that's what just reminded me. I wanted to mention that your mum also mentioned it, that you have in a site, an injection site that's like a hollow on your thigh because of the sheer number of injections that you were given over a short period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, there was I think there were twice when they said I might not make it through the night, but that one.
And may I just say that? Would you like to mention about your out of the body experience during one of those times that you didn't make it through? You did.
I might possibly have talked about that, but I want to clear up the forest thing first.
Okay.
And the Rudloe Manor thing, just because that's very, I know Rudloe Manor and all around that area, Salisbury Plain, it's known on many levels. So I want to clear that up first. I just want to say what I know for fact is that is a memory, that is a flashback. It's not an imagination. I can still see the forest. I can still see where I tripped up, and I can still see men around me urinating on me, and then I go blank. So, and then I thought, because the thing as well, okay, I'm getting feedback there. Right, that's better. The thing as well is when you've got a memory that's so troubling, it doesn't have a context to a normal human being, you try and make sense of it so that you can file it away. It's like, well, that's random, or that's unpleasant, or that's horrendous. And if you can't frame it, so just the work I'd done on it, trying to put it together was, I think I was around 8. I do know that we lived in some corporal's quarters, and then, as far as I recall, there was then a playground, and then there was woods, I think, and then the officers' quarters where my sister and I used to go for piano lessons. And I think we used to ask, can we cut through the woods to the officers' quarters for our piano lessons? And Dad used to say, no, you have to walk the road where you can't, and this goes a long way round. And then I spoke to somebody on a Rudloe Manor site that's still serving in the Air Force, and she said back in the 60s, the officers' quarters were the far side of Park Avenue on the Rudloe Manor base. And I Googled, so that was me trying to piece together. I remember the forest, I remember running, I remember tripping, I remember being urinated on, and then nothing. So whether, I've Googled, we both Googled Rudloe Manor, and there's woods. My dad was shooting, he would always be off shooting with dogs and guns, and so, there's woods, plenty of woods. And the other thing that is a clue for me to try and piece it together, and I will ask my mother this as well, is I had 2 pet baby squirrels from woods. And what I was told was some boys with catapults frightened the mother off, and she abandoned them. So I was allowed to keep them for pets. But I was only told that. I don't have any memory of where I got 2 baby squirrels. I don't have any memory of climbing a tree and rescuing them. I just know I had 2 baby squirrels from the woods. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that was Rudloe Manor, because when Daddy got another overseas posting from Rudloe. I think he got sent to Madeira on an unaccompanied for a year. And we had to move, and Dad said, right, you have to give the squirrels away. So we gave them to the nuns in Corsham, where we went. There's a Catholic primary school in Corsham, St Patrick's. I do wonder whether it was linked into the programme, but it was.
Well, you do know the underground base was at Corsham.
Yeah, well, we went.
Your father was based at Corsham. Your father, who was involved with hunting, the hunting crowd and the dogs.
Yeah, and what my father was brilliant at was the level of obedience that the way my father trained dogs was like Uri Geller, the way Uri Geller could bend spoons. It was just beyond.
Oh, they were like that.
It was beyond, you know, it wasn't just a quaint horse whisperer from Ireland. It was actually the level of obedience that he could induce from dogs. And I know Pavlov was big into that side of things, but my dad, he knew the different whistles, the silent whistles, the different pitches, exactly which one would, you know, distress a dog to obey and return and so on. And so horses was more of a native thing. He can spot a horse in a field and know it's going to be a Cheltenham Gold Cup winner. He's got an eye for horses, but the dog training was on a par with that Uri Geller stuff. It was just out of the box. So
Really?
so yeah, so anywhere Dad went, he would always, you know, people that loved gun dogs and shooting and that whole, you know, hunting, shooting thing, fishing thing. Not so much fishing, but they would all, you know, either Dad would find them or whatever, but he was always in demand for that. And the guy that owned Marks and Spencer's traded a fabulous shotgun with my dad for his prize dog. But so anyway, so one thing with memory, and I don't know if I'm right on this, and I'll try and do some more research, was a memory I thought I had of the corporal's quarters, the playground, the woods we weren't allowed in, and the officers' quarters the far side. And then when you talked about woods, walking back from school in Bath Convent to Swainswick, and you said, we were told by locals, don't go near the forest. I mean, you share what...
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't a forest. It was a wood.
When we're 8...
And what happened was when it was going dark, and one of the locals said, "Oh, don't go in the woods in the dark. Strange things happen in there." Yeah, and it seems like a wood when you. I mean, it would look a bit like a forest when you're such a little child. A wood, a reasonable sized wood, is huge.
And the thing that if there are woods in a security camp, you know, base, Air Force base, then, you know, that's great cover. If woods or forests where abuse or hunting takes place, the two prime locations for that is either on a military camp because there's security, you're not allowed on a military camp, you know, without permission, or on private estates, large private estates, which Holton, I said to Miles, Holton is on Rothschild land, you know. So, and then Buntingsdale House is the same thing. Buntingsdale House that Mummy is absolutely, you know, said Daddy was working at Buntingsdale House and we were living in quarters nearby, whether it was Wendover or Market Drayton or this was Herefordshire, Staffordshire up that way. Princess.
Yeah.
But the same with Buntingsdale House. It's a vast estate on acres of land with good.
Perfect. Yeah.
Forest, wooded, you know, because when you're shooting with gun dogs, you've got to have cover. You know, it's just all that whole scene. You've got to have cover to flush out the pheasants and all that kind of thing. There's no fun trying to shoot pheasants if they're just in broad daylight. It's not clay pigeon shooting. So anyway, the one thing was that the age. I thought, right, I was in Rudloe Manor, but then there's this huge confusion about we waited up near Holton after Gibraltar, and then we weren't supposed to be going to Rudloe Manor, but there was the commanding officer or somebody quite senior in the Air Force kept coming to see Daddy where we were near Buntingford House, supposedly to do with gun dogs and shooting. And then he said to Dad, I can't keep driving all this way, you know, I'm going to get you transferred closer to me. Now, this is the story Mum was told. So Mum was told, because Dad and this senior Air Force guy had a shared passion for shooting and gun dogs, the guy had fixed it so that we would get posted to Rudloe Manor. So we were sort of from July 65, as far as I can make out, till about October 65, we were in a holding situation where Daddy didn't know where his next posting was going to be. And then...
Right.
And
yeah, and can I just say that we were there, we were actually in Bath. You went to the first year of the convent there, so we were in Bath at the same time. The last year that I was there.
Yeah, when we arrived in Gibraltar, I was 8, and was sent when we got to Rudloe Manor, which was the term had already started. It was like October or November, but my sister and I were put into St Patrick's Catholic School in Corsham, and my older 2 sisters were put in Bath Convent. And then I transferred.
Oh, right. Well, we were there longer together then, because you were just in a different school. You were in St Patrick's, I was in St John's.
You were in the junior school in Bath, I was in the junior school in Corsham.
Yeah.
But they both fed into Bath Convent for some reason, I don't know why. But then you got moved. So yeah, no, I was 3.
You were there a year after me then.
I did first year. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I did my time at St Patrick's, which was a happy time, and then I did first year at Bath Convent, which was happy for me, but not so for my 2 older sisters. And then Dad came out of the Air Force, then moved to Bradford-on-Avon in Wiltshire, and I transferred from Bath Convent to Fitzmaurice Grammar. So I was around Rudloe Manor from 8 until 12.
And we're the same age, and I was there 4 until 11,
Yeah.
almost 12.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you know, and if I wasn't there, this is why I'm saying to Miles, don't get hung up on, you know, is it Rudloe Manor? I do know, all I know is it wasn't Gibraltar. I was in Gibraltar from 5 to 8, and Gibraltar is I have memories of Gibraltar, but Gibraltar's it's a rock. So the forest the 2 hunting memories I have that are absolutely frozen memories and absolutely clear, were flat ground. They were forest. So
it wasn't Gibraltar.
Yeah. So I definitely know. I was in Gibraltar 5 to 8. There was a 6-month floating around Holton, RAF Holton, which is a huge estate attached to the Rothschilds. It originally was, the Rothschilds have an amazing house and something like 10,000 acres. And they originally offered the Air Force to base themselves there, possibly in the Second World War. And so they might have given them, I don't know, 1,000 acres, I don't know what it was. And then Rothschild formalised it and said, actually, I'll gift it to the Air Force.
That's interesting, because I've traced a link on 3 tracks to Rothschilds in my background. The Bath Institute of Medical Engineering was funded in part by, well, that was Nuffield. The chap on the board worked for Dawn A. Day, and Rothschild had just bought that. He bought that in 71.
Yeah.
And then my partner's godfather teamed up with a guy who worked for the same bank on that branch. And then there was another, my dad's company was taken over. Peter Parker was a director after my dad left, just after my dad left, and he was a director of Dawn Day as well. So through my dad's work, through my partner, and through this Bath Institute, Rothschild, and I'm thinking, 2 steps away to Rothschild, all on 3 different lines. I'm pretty sure that in my, quest for like some hard facts on what might have happened.
Yeah, they say the Rothschilds, between the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, they own the world. They are the power behind the throne.
And being associated with the Catholic side of things, the Jesuit side of things, because we were at Catholic schools, and then there's the Rothschilds there in the background, very closely standing there in the shadows, if you like, because they owned the bases, and your father was going to meetings and so on.
He just kept getting mysterious. Oh, you have to go so and so. Mysterious. I think they used to call them secondments. And see, the catering corps is a good cover for that not being mysterious. Oh, he has to go and cater this. He has to go and cater that. He has to go and But it's
absolutely. I mean, look, Angela, with your history in later life, it's like the contacts you made, the people that you just seamlessly ended up associating with. As we've discussed, it's a program. It's the Monarch programming, really.
Absolutely no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So that's all I can say to Miles. I have it that it's around the age of 8. Herefordshire, Buckinghamshire, Wiltshire. If I can anchor it by, absolutely contacting the Air Force. Mind you, if I contact and say where were we and why was there so much flux and change, I would set alarm bells ringing. And I do intend to go to the police and say I have enough evidence and absolute conviction that from birth, myself, well, I'll just stick with me. I was subjected to medical experiments, trauma-induced dissociation,
which has been diagnosed formally, hasn't it?
Diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. I wanted to make just a point about that as well. There's so many strands, but because they talk about, this is just Hampstead's current, and they talk about that dissociation and goes hand in hand with satanic ritual abuse, because one of the things they do is actually, when you're in the state of terror and traumatized and so on, it's not just effective for downloading mind control programs that you can actually hide away, but it's also it's a time when they can attach demons to you, so that if they want you to be an assassin or
that's interesting area, because isn't it said that the whole structure of the altars are built on demons, and demons are attached to specific altars.
Yeah, so for instance, and they're very, very aware of this. Like, there are actually demonic entities that can, like they say Michael Jackson with his dancing ability, or where they've got mind control demonic celebrity or athletes or so on, they will have supernatural abilities. Like Jim Carrey, if you watch him, it's not just clever, it's freaky, and actually what it is as adults, if people submit to satanic ritual abuse, they are inviting aliens, whatever you want to call them, aliens, hybrids. They invite something to possess them. As a child, you're not given that chance. They set it up to attach demons to you with different skills. That's just another level of it. I didn't want to sidetrack about that. But so the DID I can still suffer from, but because I've consciously, to the best of my ability, cut myself off from everything dark that was done to me and everything generational that was inherited in terms of abuse and
yeah. I mean, we were talking about memory drugs, weren't we? We were just, if I can just interject there, because we were talking about memory drugs, and a lot of people maintain, oh no, you can't be hypnotized to forget, oh no, but in actual fact, scopolamine was being used from the 50s. It's well in use by then, and it's known that will leave you not remembering in itself, let alone what other ones they've developed. And I had a story about, I lived about 3 miles as the crow flies from Woodlow Manor as a child, where the deep underground base is and where Angela's father was stationed. And the girl next door couldn't be woken up one morning. They had to come and get an ambulance, take her to hospital. She woke up late that afternoon.
Yeah. And like, to say that I needed hospitalising up to the age of 5, well, why is that? Oh, you got bronchitis every time you were teething. I wasn't teething till I was 5. you've got double pneumonia. Okay, well, that's a one-off. You know, I've got children. They've had a hospital admission for bronchiolitis, whatever. You stay 3 weeks. It's not the best part of the first 5 years of your life. I've got very clear memories of being immobilized so that only my eyes and mind were working. My body was, and I believe that was for extended periods of time. You know, so I've got no doubt whatsoever. I have enough memories and enough symptoms. So the point I was making was just because somebody is in adulthood who's consciously, you know, I did 5 years work on dissociative identity disorder, and for the most part I don't dissociate unless I'm traumatized. Even like if it's anesthetic for a surgery, or if I get adrenaline floods in my body, I can get adrenaline block-ups. I've got a scar here which I never remember getting. I've got a scar here which I never remember getting. I've got a very marked indentation on my leg, which my mother tells me was from one of the times they thought you were going to die, so they just injected you too many times and they damaged the muscle. You know, and then I've got, like, we must do a video on that one time on random scars and things that we've just believed some, you know, but it doesn't make sense. There is no sensible explanation for me being in hospital most of the first 5 years of my life and every winter in the Air Force for at least, 3 to 6 weeks every winter, you know, and asthma and bronchitis, that doesn't quite, no, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. So I'm sorry, it's quite possibly Vagina, and wood, if there was secure ground. I just thought it was interesting, as I understood what you said about walking home from Swainswick, was that the guy saying to you don't go in the woods, it wasn't just like, you know, don't go into the woods, ha ha. It was like, to me, what I understood you saying was, there's stuff going on there, you do not, you know, like it was a warning, like, and it would be very much the thing that locals would say, there's stuff going on that RAF camp that you'd best ask no questions, but just don't go around it, you know. So, and my mother shows absolute, you know, profound evidence. I mean, she knows consciously that twice she was hospitalized for electric shock treatment. I don't know that, but I do know that I spent way too much time in hospital for the first 5, 6 years of my life. Yes. I have way too many memories, you know, which I didn't want to deal with. And I have way too many symptoms. You know, I've moved 46 years in my life.
On the subject of memories, your mum said that she was told that memories would be selectively removed as a result of the treatment. It was experimental treatment, electroconvulsive therapy, which combines inducing a fit. What do you call it when you have a total fit? Inducing it. That's what the convulsions are. They give you injections to induce these convulsions, and shock treatment. And on the Bath Institute of Medical Engineering, 3 miles from where I was living, was this board of people. And it was so interesting because one was a colleague of William Sargent on that board that was like prominent in that organisation, and all the guys on it, there's so many eugenic, top of the range eugenic guys. Darwin's great grandson was on it. He was the colleague of Sargent. He did the electric convulsive therapies himself, and we know William Sargent was MKUltra. It's just, you know.
Yeah, and so when they take mum back to a time of trauma in her life, and then they would shock it, and they were telling her that the hope was it would be groundbreaking treatment.
Do you think that they were abreacting her and getting her to recall memories and then having them selected?
My mother was a bit of a loose cannon because she kept going off program. She kept, like, for instance, her godmother's brother-in-law was Stan Albury, the MP. They were going to post Dad. They were going to post Mum. They kept posting Dad technically to one camp, and they'd park mum with these kids, and then they would just, she'd be like stranded because they'd send dad. She said dad got sent to, where was it she said last night? Was it Wootton Bassett? I wrote it down. No, Winterbourne Gunner. They sent him off to Winterbourne Gunner. They sent him off to Buntingsdale Hall House, which wasn't even a rat camp since 1945 officially. They sent
Is this while you were in Bath? And is it all this secondment? When was it? Mostly up to the age of 8 or 12, was it for you?
Even in Rudloe Manor, you see, this is what's so bizarre, that we apparently went to Rudloe Manor because a senior person in the Air Force fixed it for Dad to go because of his ability with gun dogs and shooting. That was the story. But then at Rudloe Manor, Dad got sent off to Madeira, to the Persian Gulf for a year, unaccompanied.
Leaving you and your mum and 3 children, was it? 5 children alone, 5 girls.
But it's not about just where we were and military and hospitals. The reason I know as well that mind control and manipulation was going on, because it's not random. Even the aristocrats that I babysat for, when we first came out of the Air Force, we moved first to Melksham and then Bradford-on-Avon, and I end up babysitting for people that are also on those committees you talked about. So I remember giving you the names. You know, I should make a list of all the gentry and diplomatic corps and establishment people that I was.
We should make a list. I think it might add up even more.
But even up to this day, this is what is so alarming, because 2 days ago, you know, I don't want to demonize the Rothschild, that, you know, that I do believe the theory that he fathered all Queen Victoria's children. You know, I buy that. Lionel Rothschild, or whatever his name was. And I do believe there's, you know, that they've done some very, you know, terrible things financially and all the rest of it. I do have acquaintances Rothschild, and they're not, you can't just say every Rothschild is a bastard. But a lot of them their hands are all over, you know, it's just steeped in it.
Yes, what interests me as well, Angie, about your background is, I picked up on my background initially. I thought about the twin thing, that was somehow, I got a bit twitchy about the twin thing, and it turns out that your family's experience of twins are, in other words, carrying one twin and losing one twin is almost every.
And I didn't realise how military my mother's family was. Like, my grandpa was in World War I, my uncle died in World War II. Mum's other 2 brothers, one was in one was in Canada with the Air Force, and one was somewhere else. They were all military. I didn't know all this. But sorry, I just lost a train of thought there. No, I was going to say about, right, okay. The biggest clue to the hunting memories I've got too, nobody was murdered in the memories I have, to my knowledge. I have spoken to survivors in America 5 years ago that disclosed to me about being hunted, about children being killed, about children escaping, you know, and talking about George Bush and Pat Robertson and you know, naming so many names, but it wasn't for the naming of the names. It was just, and at that time, 5 years ago, I couldn't process the information. I was just like, that can't be who hunts children, you know. So, but if we trace where they placed, you know, I believe they used me as a super spy, you know, journalist stroke informant, and placed me strategically amongst people they wanted to get information on. Not so much sex kitten programming.
Yes.
But even so, about when I first got involved with Facebook or MySpace, Facebook, which I only got involved with to monitor my teenage sons. But there are some royals and aristocrats that I've worked with, because for some reason, randomly, they always were in my life, whether it was for babysitting, or whether it was for governess work, or whether it was for socially, like I went to Marbella and I end up being social secretary for Lord and Lady Gillen. I end up ghostwriting for who I was convinced was a monarch slave, Honey Char Hola, you know, a peer of Lucille Ball and Princess Grace of Monaco.
Oh, really? They're
They were
both,
all,
I heard both those names mentioned in
all mind control.
connection.
And Honeychild Holo was, she thought she was a co-host of a radio show with Bob Hope. You know, Bob Hope's one of the biggest handlers in the American side.
That's right. That's
And
right.
they made them into mind control slaves, Princess Grace, Princess Honeychild, and they just sent them out to marry European royals to
It's all managed from behind the
manage
scenes.
it. And so when I first got on Facebook, some I knew and some I felt led to add. Now, I wasn't doing it like, oh, let me add everybody who's called Lord and Lady and Princess and da da da. It was very, I wasn't not aware of mind control at all, but it was very kind of just yes, yes, no, no, yes. And so I didn't do much with it. It's just I just even made a little list, aristocracy and royals. You know, I interact with some. Others have just been kind of passive on my page. But then it hit 100th monkey place, and then they started adding me. And then I told you I got,
You're a natural networker as
and
well.
because of the name Disney, which you know, both Power and Disney are, if they know that stuff, they're both blue blood lines, lost blue blood lines. And so, and then Rothschilds were sending me an invitation once a year to these, you know, Anna Rothschild in London was sending me an invitation to the big party once a year. And it was, you know, with all these photographs of them all in masks, and it was all looking very ritual and Masonic. And I mean, they didn't send me porn, but they sent me photos of parties I clearly was not interested in going to. I didn't
Really?
even RSVP. I was like, whoa, you know, like, whoa. And
Ah,
I would get invitations to Russian balls and Viennese balls and, you know, and I just was like flattered and didn't think anything of it. And then there was this sort of 100th monkey, so where they think, oh, look, you know, mutual friend, Sony Suzuki and Alistair O'Brody and, you know, whatever. Oh, yeah, she's one of us. And so whatever. So I just let it be. Some of them I've got to know. But as recently as 2 days ago, I get added to a closed group, which to me looks like the first step, which if one were brave enough to be an investigative journalist, it's a paedophile ring. It's an elite, it's an elite paedophile ring, you know. So, have we lost sound? We lost sound there. I don't know why. Anyway,
sorry, I put my microphone off while you were talking.
oh, I beg. Okay.
Yeah.
So just there's too many coincidences. But I'm just saying. I think it was Rudloe Manor, Miles. At this stage, I can't swear to it being Rudloe Manor, but the only other option is up fucking, well, I say the only other option. They held us in a holding situation from July to October, and it was around Buntingsdale House, which was not a camp, but Mum swears it was a camp where Daddy was working. It could have been around there, or it could have been Rudloe Manor. And, but I definitely know the squirrels were from the woods at Rudloe Manor. So there are woods. I know that because I never gave my script.
We've seen it on Google Earth as
Yeah.
well.
So
We've checked it recently. There are woods now even.
yeah. So just you know, all the way along, all the people I thought I randomly met, even in Hollywood, they were not random. It was all, you know, it was all mind control. It was manipulated. But the point I was making as well is even the attachment of demons, you know, the way that you can be successfully mind controlled is get them as infants and work on them till 6 and embed horror, but also overlay it with drugs, which they were even refining deadly nightshade. I mean, I'm not an expert on pharmaceuticals, but I have no doubt whatsoever the drugs were there. So you start with trauma, you add in drugs, you use electric shock, and you use disorientating environments, like keep changing, keep having emergencies, and keep doing, you know, unexpected. You know, like my mother doesn't know how she came. Daddy was sent off somewhere. She's living in a house with a baby, and no, she's even pregnant. She's living in a house pregnant with their first child, and then next thing she's living in an officer's house.
Yeah.
and she doesn't know why. Like, she doesn't know, she doesn't have dementia or anything like that. But it's like, my mother's 81, she's giving a history talk this Thursday night to 100 people. It's not that it's not that she's doty, or it's not that I'm stupid, but if
No,
Kathy and I sat and asked her about this same period where I remember being hunted,
that's right.
she was absolutely dissociated. She was absolutely, it was as if she was in a daze, like, what's wrong with my brain? Why can't I'll just write down a couple of bits. I'll just say the couple of bits. She's written, RAF Hornchurch. Well, I don't know of a site. Might be, I don't know what there is. Anyway, she says RAF Hornchurch, and then Craden Hill, Hereford, Buntingsdale Hall, Shropshire. Oh, I should have looked here. Yeah. Hospital, Wendover, Buckinghamshire, Norfolk. Yeah, so like Norfolk, Gibraltar, and then before Rudloe Manor, when we came back from Gibraltar, when we come back from Gibraltar, that's when she talks about being in a holding situation and being moved to Rudloe by this senior person because of the dog thing. So, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, very good.
Anyway, the details will go on, but I'd love to be able to clear it up a few miles. There are woods in and around Rudloe, not forest. The memory's absolutely authentic, I've got no doubt about that.
Your mum's been great, hasn't she?
And ongoingly, I do believe my mum will be an absolute goldmine, but none of us are going to fully recover, because that was the purpose. I wasn't even supposed to recover this much memory, nor were you, Kathy. It's like it's a fail. They call it a leakage. So
That's all it is, really.
managed to blot off
Certain memories that have stayed there,
Yeah.
and then it's just a rearranging of the memories you've already got, really,
Exactly.
filed away, you know, under.
I think it's horrific that I was hunted and urinated on, and hunted another time and dogs bit me, but that's peanuts to what they did manage to wipe, you know, or bury, you know. It's not a pleasant thought. Actually, if that's what leads, God knows what.
That is precisely what William Sargent was working on, completely wiping memories and reprogramming. That's what he was doing, and his colleague was there 3 miles away on these committees of the so-called, it might have been a front, because the eugenic experiments that were being done by associates of some of the people there were twins, social experimentation, human engineering, eugenic experiments around twins. It's all down there in these conferences around that area, and it was
when we finish our book and publish it, which we're working on, it all makes much more sense, because random memories we can anchor, and primarily, I must say that the credit for that side of things primarily is to Kathy, because I'll say a name, or she'll remember something, or I'll say a location, and then it's this committee, it's that fund, it's connected to this, and that's the, and it's like, wow, Edith. So we are writing a book, and we will, and what I hope is that if we don't ever experientially recover all of our memories, that we will anchor it by fact and also by corroboration. I really hope it's happening already. I've had, military children contact me with similar and worse stories of the safe camps. Absolutely, it's like shocking, shocking. So we're going to put this all down on paper. Whether it'll ever make sense, it's insanity, whether it will ever make sense, but it certainly will be in the context. And I think part of the reason why Kathy and I both are so clear is because we've done the research. Kathy's done 4.5 years of research, and the dots join, they double join.
It's amazing, really, and I suddenly find like William Sargent's colleague in Xintang, and you're like, oh, why? How did I miss that? But it's all starting to add up.
We only need to say a name. We go and look at our framework, and they're there. They're there.
Yeah, it's like, because it's the actual truth. Whenever you look, you do find loads of stuff because it's a fact, the facts, you know, and there's
Very
everything.
beautiful. You know, it would be nice for us to think we just had some bad nightmares and watched some scary movies.
I know, I know. And then something jumps up and bites you and goes, huh.
And yeah, it's absolutely, this is not the musings of crazy people. This is actually,
Yeah,
we actually are probably only aware even at this stage of 70%
there's loads more to find. Because I traced some MKUltra funding through an associate who I'm sure is linked to Bath as well. Yeah, that's the anti-communist funding is it's the funding for the anti-communism MKUltra. That was their big excuse in the beginning. So there's a connection where they organized themselves into groups where they said they weren't accountable to any government or any authority. They were law unto themselves, and they could get this funding, and it came through the MKUltra funding. Richard Mellon Scaife, Scaife, sorry. So I'm getting links now to MKUltra and to our situation, which is what I'm trying to find, because I'm sure that it's related to that programming. I think it went to that level.
Yeah,
It wasn't eugenics
Bath is kind of like a hub. Bath and Porton Down.
genetics.
Ludlow Manor, Porton Down,
It's
Bath.
it's all hereditary too. In your family, my granddad was like a hospice too, with 7 daughters or however many more. I think 11 it might have been actually. Daughters again, and then
They look for people with generational abuse. You know, like my mum had her firstborn child. Dad was told go on holiday for 3 weeks because you're getting posted to Germany. So the baby's only the baby's about 3 weeks old. They fly off to Ireland for 3 weeks holiday before Dad goes on ahead to Germany, and then all of a sudden Mum's told, "Oh, we're going back early. Leave the baby here with my sister, and go back to London and go back to work." Who takes a 3 week, 5 week old baby off you, and says, "Oh, my sister will raise her"? Well, my granddad, who was round the corner, was known to be a paedophile, and my dad left the baby there. So the bond is like shock trauma broken with mum and her firstborn child at whatever age, handed to his sister and exposed to his father, who's a known paedophile, and then his father, the known paedophile, brings his mum wouldn't put up with it. After a few months, she said, I'll work, but I want the baby here. I'm not just leaving my baby." So the paedophile father, my granddad, and my nan travelled back the baby, and it's too, and like the guy, like I was born in RAF Bedford. There's a woman working in the kitchens with my dad. Her son-in-law is a father. There was also Faber and Rothschilds and Aubrey MPs all around Buckinghamshire and Staffordshire where we were, and so there just happens to be a Faber paedophile, connected to the hospital in Bedburg and connected to the person that's working in the kitchens with Dad. And then I get sent there unaccompanied, age 12, for a month at a time, to be molested daily and traumatized daily. And I thought all of that was I was very unlucky. Everything was put in place, even meeting all the aristocracy and the royals and what have you. And also, we didn't just randomly bump into sex abusers. There was a network of, they were handlers, they were partners in traumatizing children, maybe even flattered into being told it's a service to science. You're helping, this traumatizing will make us discover amazing things about the brain and whatever, but the point I want to make is just, it's not random, it's not crazy, it's diabolical. And that's it. And I hope that wasn't as quick as it was meant to be, but I hope that just cleared it up, Miles. And if you want to edit this in or put, add this on, the hunting memory, absolutely. I believe Rudlow Manor. I could be wrong. That's all I need to say.
Okay.
So I'll leave that with you. Thanks so much, Kathy.
Thanks, Angie. See you.